Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to Connecting Knots. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Becky Sutton, Director for Community Health Services here at Knots Healthcare. A big warm welcome to everybody this afternoon, and I'm going to be your chair for the next hour and a half. We've got a really exciting agenda this afternoon, various people talking, and as you perhaps remember from our session in January, we're taking every month one of our values and focusing on that, and today's is teamwork. So there's some good presentations and videos following up from there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Paul Devlin to give us an update from the chair. Thank you.
Hi everybody, Paul Devlin, Trust Chair here. Welcome to this session. There's loads and loads of stuff in here that's about celebration today, and some really good news stories. I just also want to acknowledge that we are approaching that point of that year on in terms of the pandemic, and the incredible efforts everybody has made throughout that time. I'm hoping that some of the things that we talk about today will start to help us look forward and get as we start to move out. So I'm going to stop there and hand straight across to John. John, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Hi everybody, John Brewin, Chief Exec, as you know. We've got a cracking lineup this afternoon. I don't know if I've mentioned National Staff Survey to anybody previously, but that's coming up, and it's no longer embargoed. More of that imminently. I just wanted to say a couple of words about the pandemic, where we are, what's sort of coming into our front view really. So I think everybody's aware that the headline numbers nationally and across the county are improving quite significantly. It's great news. To use the cliche, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we are starting to have the conversations around what's getting back to normal is, whatever that is, business as usual. But it's going to take some time. The virus isn't going to go away, and we need to make sure that our working practices accommodate that, and continue to support staff to provide the best care that they can. And just to follow up on Paul's comment about, we are a year in, almost exactly, aren't we, to the day. And I know that across the system over the coming weeks, it's really important that we take some time to reflect on that, and some of the huge sacrifices that staff across all departments have made has been absolutely phenomenal. And also to recognise, sadly, unfortunately, the relatively small number of people in the NHS and care system that have lost their lives due to COVID, and there'll be more of that over the coming weeks for us to discuss. But at the same time, lots of really positive work that we want to make sure that we can continue to capture and help inform our way forward. And just some headlines on the vaccination programme. Again, you'll be aware that we're the coordinating organisation that across systems gone, I think it's true to say, spectacularly well across the country. Within the county as well, I think we're probably about at or over 400,000 anytime soon. And we're into phase 2 this week. We've had a massive bump up in supplies. It's becoming much more predictable, and we're starting to do large numbers of second doses now. So overall, we'll be doubling our output from 40 to 80,000 on average a week. And so again, thank you to everybody across our organisations that contributed to not only providing the vaccine into people's arms, but the massive infrastructural effort that's been required in terms of the logistics and technicalities. The bureaucracy to get that up and running is no mean feat. We need to make sure that we stay at it, don't we? That it's quite tempting to start to think about, well, should we bend the rules here and there? And we've got to continue with a really good practice that we've started to get into the routine around social distancing, use of PPE and all that sort of stuff. Because, like I said, it's still there, and it's in the air. And then to close, I just wanted to start to link to the next piece and the theme of teamwork. So the national staff survey is, I think, the most important piece of feedback around all aspects of our performance that we get. It's nationally validated, it's benchmarked. There's an awful lot of validity behind the questions that are asked and how the scores are collated, and we've done really well. And that is just a phenomenal testimony to staff across the whole organisation that have contributed to that as Team Notts Healthcare. And I wanted to sort of have that by way of introduction, thanking everybody for their fantastic contribution to that. You've done good. And then by way of, so to finish my bit around the introduction, it's National Social Work Day tomorrow, and just wanted to particularly highlight the work that social workers are providing, and both within our organisation but more broadly across the system. It's a really important part of the care that we provide to a whole range of really vulnerable people in our society, and it's really important that we are recognising that great domain of work. So that's it by way of Chief Exec update to me. So I don't know whether I'll reintroduce myself now to the next bit and go on to staff survey results. I don't really want to say very much more, because I know Claire's got just a couple of slides to celebrate what a brilliant result we've got. And I think it's really important that we take some time to celebrate the good stuff. And you know, by no means are we complacent, and by no means are we complete in our progress to work on some of the fundamental things that we've been working on over the last 18 months, 2 years. But this is a great result in terms of, I think we can say now it's more than just a few green shoots. This is a real foundation to move on from. So I'll leave you with the headline that we are the most improved mental health learning disability community trust in the country, in terms of our people recommending us as a place to work. And considering some of the challenges we've had and where we've come from, that's a fantastic result. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Claire to take us through the rest of that piece. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be with you. As John said, I'm Clare Teeney. I'm Director of People and Culture here at Notts Healthcare. Great to be with you at one of our regular Connecting Notts events. So 2020 staff survey results, as John said, really important piece, the National Staff Survey. It's the opportunity for colleagues across the organisation to give and share feedback around staff experience, and that helps us inform the decisions that we then take about continuing to improve that staff experience going forward. So the staff survey ran last year from the 5th of October to the 27th of November, and that feels like a long time ago. In some respects it is, in others it isn't at all. And we encourage colleagues to take 10, to have 10 minutes out to complete the staff survey, and I'm really pleased to say that a number of you did so. So we're hugely grateful for that, because it was a particularly pressured time. And a number of colleagues were working very differently, working in different teams, had different work arrangements, and of course had got huge changes in their personal lives. So in that context, really grateful for everybody for taking the opportunity to complete the staff survey. And we can move on to the next slide, please. So as John sort of said, then we've got some really good feedback. There's some areas, this is about continuous improvement, I should say that, but it is a moment for us to, I think, reflect on the really great work that all of our colleagues do across Nottinghamshire Healthcare, because this survey is as much about you and what we need to do together as it is anything else. We are the most improved mental health, learning disability, community healthcare trust in the country, as John said, based on the recommendations about a great place to work and recommending the trust as a place to receive care and treatment. And the figures there on the screen sort of indicate the significant rise in what people say in percentage terms about that. And I think that those figures and that feedback is really important, because how you feel about the care that you're able to give and the services that you work in is fundamentally important, and how you feel about your staff experience and coming to work every day and what that means to you in the context, as I said, of a difficult and unusual year last year is again really important. I think those pieces of feedback and those improvements that we've made together are things that we should be collectively proud of, and we should take a moment to really be really proud of everything that we've done and continue to do together. Highest number ever of responses, so over 4,000 colleagues did respond to the staff survey, and we've significantly improved. There's 2 areas there, but there are 10 broad domains that I'll come on to shortly, and overall we saw good improvements in 9 out of 10 of those areas, which again in an improvement terms is really significant for us. And overall we had an increase of 10.9%, so 55.6% of you responded to the survey last year, which again was really encouraging, so thank you for that. On to the next slide please, which basically shows the overall 10 domains in which we've improved overall. So there are 10 domains within the staff survey. I'm not sure if colleagues can pick up that relevant slide. Don't worry too much if you can't, because we can share that out, and we will be doing it across the organisation. But in essence, of those 10 domains, the one area where we didn't improve was where colleagues had felt that they were still experiencing violence and aggression from patients and members of the public, and we know that that's a piece of work that we've got to continue to work through with you. So we'll take on that feedback, and we will be putting in plans to improve that and improve that experience overall. The other areas where we improved were around staff support with health and wellbeing. And if colleagues can remember, last year in April we did actually launch our Trust Health and Wellbeing Service, and that Health and Wellbeing Service was launched on the back of the feedback that you had all given us in the months previously, and we co-designed and continue to work on the delivery of that health and wellbeing offer. So that's a really good example of how your feedback informed the service that we've put in place to support all of our colleagues. Another area where we saw some significant improvements was around equality and diversity. And I think some of the really good examples of that were the events that we led across the ICS. So normally we would all attend Pride in Nottinghamshire City Centre in July. Because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do that. But collectively, we did come together for a virtual event, which was really well received. And we did the same for Black History Month and Disability History Month. Equally, some of the other work that we've done has been around the development of our BME staff network. I'm really grateful for all the support and time that colleagues have put into shaping and developing that network. It's been really important in terms of staff voice and creating a safe space so that colleagues can have honest dialogue and provide us with really good feedback to improve staff experience in the things that we do across the organisation. And one of the things that we are going to do, based on the experience of that network, but also the feedback in the staff survey, is think about the other networks that will be really good for us to develop across the organisation. That's something that you have said as colleagues that will be really important for us to do going forward. So apologies for me talking at you without any slides to support. We're having a few technical problems, I think, that that I think we're struggling to bring the slides up. So I don't know if we've got any slides available. If we've not, I'll just talk about a few of the things that we did before. So I talked about the health and wellbeing offer. I've mentioned some of the staff networks. There's more for us to do on that, but those are things that are in place and are developing well. We've also improved some of our recruitment processes, and as of the 1st of April, we will be launching our microsite, which will be a site for anybody that's interested in coming to work for Notts Healthcare, or if you already work at Notts Healthcare and you're interested in looking for other alternative work and developing your career, there'll be a whole dedicated website that makes that easier for you to navigate. And one of the other things that we've worked really hard on over the last few months has been improving our communication channels. So the fact that we're able to do this and keep our Connecting Notts programme alive and well has been really good. Microsoft Teams, it was 12 months ago when we started using it, and I know it's not necessarily ideal, but it has enabled us to keep communicating with you, and I'm sure that you've all got used to and are really fond of hearing from John Brewin Monday to Friday in the daily John's update. I know that's gone down really well, but I think they are good examples of how we've improved our comms. And I know with Yolanda's appointment, it's something that she will be continuing to push us on. So in terms of the approaches going forward, if we can bring up the next slide, that would help. So some of the things that you've said and that we will continue to work together on in 2021. We will be sharing the details, as I said, of the high-level staff survey results. There are 6,000 lines of narrative for us to analyse, and we will be working those through. We'll be looking to continue to shape things trust-wide. I particularly talked about health and wellbeing and really capitalising on some of the ways that colleagues have been able to work in a more agile way to enable work-life balance. That's something that we will continue to work on. That featured heavily in terms of some of the narrative feedback. So we'll continue to do that. And we'll also be working at a more localised level into divisions and directorates to understand the specific feedback from teams and to work with you at that level to enact on your feedback from the National Staff Survey. So that's some of the headlines. It's really good news. We are not complacent and we know that there's still a lot for us to do. But collectively bringing about those improvements, I think, is something that we should all be and can all be really, really proud of. So I'll pause there just in case there's anything else that Paul and or John want to say, just in terms of any final reflections on National Staff Survey.
Claire, it's John. Just to add, well done for getting through that without the slides in front of you, and we'll obviously get all that data out. And I just want to emphasise that the importance of for the conversation with staff is that you said together we will, or together we did, and to emphasise that the teamwork part of this. So it's really important that as a leadership team we reflect that in the conversation, that these are the critical things that you've said are important. I know you said that in your commentary, but I just wanted to sort of emphasise that because I think it's a crucial thing. This is all about working together. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And that's absolutely right in terms of what we received back in terms of feedback, and particularly the focus on teamwork. And the final comment from me on that before I go on to the next section around our Gold Award is just to talk about we did do quite a big piece of co-produce work to co-produce our trust values in terms of trust, honesty, respect, compassion and teamwork. Those were all of the things that you said that were important to you and that were reflective of how you would want to see people behave within the organisation. And we co-produced and relaunched our trust values last year. And what was really encouraging in terms of some of the staff survey feedback was to really see how some of that was starting to land and make a difference in terms of the areas in which we all work across the organisation. So thank you. Okay, on to the next section of the agenda, which is about our work with the armed forces and the armed forces family. So I just wanted to take the opportunity for a couple of minutes to remind everybody about some of the commitments that we've made. So next slide, please. She says, hopefully. We have a commitment to work with the armed forces, and we did previously sign up to be and for a gold award to be an employer who was committed to supporting work with the armed forces family. So that can be for veterans, for reservists, for cadets, and or families of those that are that have family members who are in the armed forces. And what that means is that we are committed to supporting people who are reservists to continue in employment, for example, and for people that leave the armed forces to gain other employment and to utilise their skills in other ways. One of the other things that we do as an organisation is a lot of work with veterans, for example. A number of veterans are our patients and our service users, and I'm pleased to also just give a shout out to Offender Health Services, who've been shortlisted for a HSJ award in the National Health Awards for the work that they are doing with veterans. So all the best and good luck to them. I think those awards are later this week. What we will be doing, it's time to renew our Gold Award as an employer, so we will be reinforcing our commitment around employment terms to support veterans and reservists and cadets of the armed forces, and we'll be working through a number of initiatives to promote that. I talked about our recruitment microsite earlier. There will be specific pages on there so that we can really support people who are looking for alternative employment, particularly coming out of the armed forces, to utilise the skills and continue their careers, hopefully with Nottinghamshire Healthcare. So I just wanted to share where we're up to and to reaffirm our commitment to the Gold Award and the Armed Forces Covenant. So that's everything from me. There'll be more details out about that, and I think that's my section over and done with. So over to the next part of the agenda, which is onto speech and language therapy team, teamwork, and what that means at Nottinghamshire Healthcare.
Okay, we were saying what does teamwork mean to us, and we were saying about having some trust and respect and the opportunity to support each other and share ideas, which was really important.
And I think one of the importances that we highlighted was emotional support, which I think has been incredibly important over the past year. You know, I think it would have been really, really tough working in this team if we didn't get on and we couldn't emotionally support each other. So yeah, I think teamwork for me is definitely enjoying the people that I work with.
And I think we talked about that before, haven't we, about feeling in our last meeting, we talked about being almost like being a bit of a family and having really trusting each other.
And having different roles in the family. I think that's important as well. Acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, because I know for me, when if I strip back in my mind to the basics of teamwork, I feel, you know, it's a group of people working together, working effectively together towards a shared goal, or an outcome, but there's so many elements within that you've just described that would help facilitate and, you know, would help you achieve the effectiveness. And the key one for me is appreciating each other's strengths in terms of support. And my biggest one is feedback. And feedback is in so many different shapes and forms. That's one of the biggest things that, you know, around teamwork that I think is important for me. And that's what we do a lot on a daily basis, whether that's direct verbal feedback or if that's helping each other out. But it's that daily support and it's the consistency that makes us, I think, really effective as a group.
And I think we do that so naturally. I think our team does that so naturally. It's nothing is forced.
For example, Tiff came in this morning and I let Tiff know that I was on my own at Queen's today, and you immediately said, oh, let me know if you need any, and you did this.
Yeah, I did that.
So it's knowing that you've got that support, and having each other's back, absolutely. Checking in with each other, that's something we do on a daily basis.
That's really important for me, being new, because I'm still learning, like having that support and being able to ask for help and always having someone there who is going to help me and like talk through my patients and like reassure me that what I did was okay. And provide that kind of like support to let me know that I'm doing all right and help me out if I need it. That's been a really big thing for me.
You know, I think we all need that. I think the fact that you're new, I understand what you're saying, but actually I think we all need that, don't we? That reassurance that we can go to somebody and get feedback, and that assurance that actually you're doing the best you can do. And you know, I think that's really important, particularly at the moment, particularly through COVID. I think that's been so important. But it's really good to hear you say that, Kate.
And don't you feel that as a team, you know, often there's a kind of notion that, you know, leadership are often responsible for creating that safe environment, but actually, you know, we all hold some level of responsibility in that, and we all make each other feel safe at work, which is why we can approach one another. We don't hesitate, I don't think, at all to question, to professionally challenge, or to just share our experiences with one another. And I think that's what's really strengthened our relationship through COVID especially. We know how hard it's been, but it's been an absolute phenomenal year for all of us. We've done so well. So yeah, super proud.
I think that was a lovely video just showing teamwork in real action. I loved the bit between the groups about how they felt safe and how they worked together, particularly during the time that we've seen over the last year, more important than ever during COVID. So I'm going to move us on in terms of the agenda now and introduce Lorraine Hooper, who's our new Director of Finance, Information and Estates, who's going to give us a few slides about an introduction about herself. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Becky. I'm really pleased to be here today. My name's Lorraine Hooper. I'm the new Director of Finance, Information and Estates for the Trust. I'm just beginning my third week, so I've met an awful lot of people in the last 2 weeks, and everybody's been extremely welcoming and answered a lot of my questions. I've got a couple of facts, I guess, to tell you about myself today and a little bit about my career and what's important to me. So we could have the next slide, please. So I'll start with a couple of hopefully mildly interesting facts about me. So I grew up in Bristol, which is where my family still are. That's felt a very long way over the last year or so. I actually grew up on the end of the street where Nelson Mandela House is from Only Fools and Horses. It's not in London, as they would leave you to believe. It's actually the end of my street in Bristol. I am by far and away the least exciting sibling in my household, perhaps to be expected when you've trained as an accountant. My brother is in fact a hot air balloon pilot, so I have been known to spend many weekends in warmer weather trailing up and down the countryside with a trailer seeking a hot air balloon. I do have some of my own interests though. I partake in a little bit of amateur dramatics. Not done that for a little while now, but there is a picture there that is a little old. I'll leave you to work out which one of those is me. And I ended up in the East Midlands and in this part of the world when I came to university. I went to Nottingham University, which is that last picture there, and studied an economics degree. So we have the next slide, please. So my career has taken me in ever decreasing circles really around the Midlands. I've worked in a variety of different geographies and a variety of different services and sectors as well. So I started out as a trainee accountant at the QMC. And when I qualified, I went to work in Birmingham and I looked after lots of acute services there in various different finance jobs, including things like the military contract and transplant services. I came back to this side of the country and went to work in Leicestershire for a while, again in the big acute trust there, and then moved on to be the Deputy Director of Finance at Sherwood Forest Hospitals. The job that I had prior to this one was the Director of Finance, Estates and Performance at North Staffordshire Combined Trust in Stoke-on-Trent, so a mental health trust, mental health and LD trust. So I come to this with some knowledge of the services that we provide and also having been a DOF before, but I've certainly still got a huge amount to learn coming here. So for my next slide, please. So this one is, it's quite simple. My first impressions, as I said at the beginning, I have been made to feel extremely welcome here. There isn't a person I have come across who hasn't taken the time to introduce themselves to me, to make me feel welcome, and also to tell me about their role in the services that they provide and the job that they do. And that's been really helpful for me in getting to know the organisation and getting to understand the portfolio that I'm responsible for, as well as getting to know the others in the executive team, as well as the board. So thank you to everybody who has made me feel so welcome so far. And I think the last slide now. So the things that I would want you to know about me, so what I've described as the important facts here. I was quite disillusioned when I left university. I thought I was going to have to become a banker or something, and really didn't like the thought of that. Got very close to the end of university without having any prospect of a job until somebody sat me down and spoke to me about the NHS one day, and a light bulb went on and I thought, that's it, that's what I want to do. That's the kind of organisation and ethos I want to be working with. So I found the NHS and then found a career within it, being an accountant as it was at the time, rather than trained as an accountant and found the NHS. And I think that's an important thing to know. If you cut me in half, like many of us, it definitely says NHS all the way through the middle. And I believe really passionately about making care as good as it can be for our patients and service users. And as part of that, I have very strong and fierce feelings about my values and making sure I live out my values every day, and they do align with those that the organisation has got. And I'm particularly keen on making sure that I foster a culture of trust and honesty, not just in the services and my teams that I'm responsible for, but across the organisation as well. And just a couple of things. I am a huge believer in innovation. I think that is absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm keen to make sure while I'm here I can see how we can make that happen in delivering better services as well. And one final thing, I know I don't always get things right, and we don't always do them in the best way that we can, so I'm very welcome for people to give me that feedback on how we can be better about things. It's those honest conversations delivered in the right way that will make us do things better, and that ultimately will be for the better of our services and patients. So I will leave that there.
Thank you, Lorraine. Really lovely insight into a bit about you and what makes you tick, and lovely feedback in your first few weeks within Notts Healthcare. I can't quite believe I was sat doing that. Only felt like weeks ago. It's actually 5 months ago that I joined the trust. So watch this space, it goes really quickly. So we're just leading us on to the question and answer session for Connecting Knots this afternoon. We haven't had many questions in. We've had a couple in around the staff survey, so I'm going to look to my colleagues to help answer that. So the first question we've had in the comment on improved trust within the NHS and how many that is, and I didn't know whether John would like to comment on that bit around comparators and how many trusts we're comparing ourselves to in answer to the question we've had on that one.
Yeah, thanks Becky, thanks for the question. We're the best out of 6,496 different trusts in the whole world universe. Oh no, I've got a word, no, that's wrong, it's 52 trusts that have some output related to mental health, learning disability across the country. So that's 52 organisations, and we're the most improved of those. It's important, isn't it? Because if one of the things that we perhaps haven't looked at in a lot of detail is our improvement over the last 3 or 4 years. So if having this conversation for the last 2 years, those 10 domains that Claire talked about, we were bumping along the bottom in a fair few of those, and we've now been able, because of that response, got ourselves into the middle of the pack. So if you look at the best performing organisations, we're not quite there yet, but we now know the sorts of things that we need to pursue to get us up there, which I'm optimistic we can do for next year and onwards. But it's the pleasure of getting us out of the doldrums that I think is really important catalyst for us for the future. So it's 52. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you, John. Thanks, John, for the answer to that one. The next question we've had this afternoon was a little bit of interest on the infographic, which I think is personally great. One slide to show all the results around where we can share it and what the comms plan is. So I don't know whether Claire and Yolanda would like to comment on that one at all in terms of the different areas that we're getting things out, but also the specific question is where can we share the infographic, whether we can do that on social media or with our teams. We have just put the infographic on Connecting Knots, so it is available there. And again, I don't know whether Claire would like to say a bit more about the comms piece. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. So I know that we've put the slides out and we've shared the infographic. We will be sharing that through social media channels along with some of the headlines as well today and throughout the rest of the week and onward. And the general message is please feel free to share that as well, colleagues. Retweet it, tweet it for yourselves. Put it out through the various social media channels. Yeah, and we'll be doing the same.
Thank you, Claire. I think Paul would quite like to come in and add a comment around text responses and how we're handling those. Thanks, yeah, Paul.
Thanks, Becky. I think there's a lot of the headline data and information that Claire and John have referred to, and I'm absolutely delighted with that as well. I just wanted to pick up, and perhaps Claire, you can just confirm if I'm right on this, that free text responses in the staff survey are really, really important as well, because they give us rich data. And I know that the exec team will have already started doing the analysis of the themes and information that we can get from that. And I just wanted to say to anybody who took time to write free text that absolutely every piece of free text gets read and considered and pulled into how we then look to our next year ahead. Claire, do you want to come and do you want to just confirm that, Claire?
Yeah, it does. As I say, we had over 6,000 lines of narrative, and people had really took the time to write some considered thoughts and feedback around that. we are looking at all of those and we are analysing those through. Some are quite service specific, so we will be going back into those services, and people have identified where they want that particular action to take place, so we will be responding to the specifics of those comments. And others are about more general improvements. So one of the big things has been around how people can continue to work in agile ways, perhaps balancing work and home life. That was a big theme in some of the feedback, noting the changes that a lot of people had around their caring responsibilities, and an ask of us as an organisation to really think about how we can be an employer for carers and enable flexible working so that people can balance home and work life commitments. And I think that was something that was there but came to the fore, particularly in the last year, where people had to adjust how they work and how they operate at home. So we will be responding to all of that, and we will be looking at everyone's feedback in detail.
Thank you, Claire. I think we've got one more question that's come in this afternoon. Obviously last week on Monday was International Women's Day, and John, Sarah and Anne-Maria shared their answers on last week's Exec Q&A. I was on leave last week, so clearly I thought I'd dipped out, but clearly not. So the question is to myself and Lorraine: which women have inspired you most and why? I'll give Lorraine a moment so she can think about it. In terms of me, I suppose it's easy to sit here and say it's somebody famous. I actually think the women that have inspired me most in my life are women managers and bosses that I've had. And one in particular, a lady called Pat, who was my manager when I worked as an audiologist. And the reason she inspired me was around that self-belief. So I think it was that piece around pushing me as an individual to think a little bit wider than my professional boundaries, what some of my values were, and actually interestingly remember a conversation with her where I can't quite remember the context, but she was saying to me, "You're bigger than all of this, you need to do more." At the time I took it really personally and almost was that point about, does she not think I'm any good to do what I'm doing? But actually years later it was that acknowledgement that there was a big world, huge NHS out there, and if I just thought about the constraints around the profession that I was in, I certainly wouldn't have been here as I am today. So that makes me really proud. So Lorraine, hopefully that's given you enough time to answer that question too.
Thank you, it has. Thank you, Becky. So I think I would have to say that one of the women that's inspired me the most has been one of my very closest friends. So we met when I was at university, and she has since that point always made me look quite inward at myself about what I can and can't do and what I'm comfortable with and what I'm happy doing. And particularly when I stepped into my first executive post, when I became the director of finance, anybody who's made that step will know that it's hugely difficult. Until you're in it, you just don't know how much of a cliff edge it is. And at that point, when I sort of had my head on the desk and was thinking, I can't do this, this is too hard, this is not what I was cut out for, she very much reminded me of what my values were. Of what I came to work to do and why I did what I did. And I've watched her do that with lots of people, and I watch her do that with her own career as well. And so she really inspires me to dig deep, I guess, on those difficult days.
Thank you, Lorraine, that's great. We've had a second bit to that question, and I think whilst we've still got time, the question's been asked of Clare and Paul too. So just as you thought you were escaping it, you weren't, and Paul's asked to go last. So Clare, if you'd like to answer that question, and then I'll come on to Paul before I move us on to the next section. Thank you.
Okay, well, likewise, Becky and Lorraine, you know, there are women that I have the absolute pleasure of being able to work around every single day that do incredible jobs. I just talked a little bit there about work-life balance. I know that it's not a complete gender issue, but recognising yesterday was Mother's Day, and there will have been a lot of mums at work across Notts Healthcare being absolutely fabulous and generous with their time. I think that I do always take inspiration from the female colleagues that I'm around and the commitments and sacrifices that they make. Two, in terms of people that are, I suppose, in the limelight and will be known to people, inspirational for different reasons. They both have incredible backstories, and if you just have the opportunity to take some time and find out a little bit more about them, then I find them inspiration. I'm sure that you will do too. And one of those is Michelle Obama, and the other lady is Dolly Parton. Take time, have a look.
Thanks, Claire. I certainly will. So over to Paul to answer that question, and then I'll move us on to the next bit of the agenda. Thanks.
Thanks very much, and it's really good to get to reflect on this. And Catherine, I'm going to give you 3 answers, none of which will surprise you, I don't think. So the first one for me is a woman called Christine Burns, trans woman who wrote a fantastic book about the history of trans people in the UK. I absolutely recommend it. And she's somebody who has been able to be an inspiration to me despite me never ever actually having met her. And then the other 2, it's got to be Kate Bush and PJ Harvey. Absolutely real influences to me. And I know, Catherine, you're probably giggling away to yourself at me naming the pair of them. And I suspect John Brewin might have put money on at least one of those ones. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Really insightful and a great question to ask us to see a little bit more insight of us moving forward. So I don't think we've had any more questions, so I'm going to move us on the agenda for another short video around teamwork, this time showcasing the chaplaincy and the spiritual care team.
We all know that teamwork is central to everything that we're doing in the NHS, and in chaplaincy and spiritual care it's a key part of our ability to be able to fulfil our role. If you listen to popular opinion and the way that social media polarizes, then our multi-faith team with a group of people with radically different beliefs, we ought to be the most divided and dysfunctional team in the trust. Yet we have a real sense of team and a real sense of connection as we work together. Why is that?
Relationship, the foundation of every successful team. We spend our time together in conversation, knowing about each other's beliefs and practices, interests and family. And we enjoy spending time together, whether that's in the office, having lunch, delivering training, or maybe on a team day. And our team really is a happy one that works well together. And good relationships produce something.
Trust and openness. Working together in an environment of trust and openness helps us to not only feel happy at work, but helped at work. Feeling safe to both speak and listen is part of what marks out a great team. In such a team, you can ask the hard questions, you can encourage each other, you can be confident whilst also being vulnerable. It's a place where you can not only speak your mind, but speak your heart. And this working environment has a natural byproduct.
Vision, the buzzword of leaders everywhere. Vision really ought to be one thing: seeing the needs of all those we are serving, whether that be patients, service users, our staff, or the wider community. A connected team will produce such a vision, and our mission becomes working out together how we can meet those needs. This makes us look at our resources and opportunities more creatively, because everything at our disposal becomes a means to deliver the care and the support we exist for. This does not mean there are no challenges, but it brings to life
leadership. Team leadership becomes the enabling of your team to meet its real needs. It's empowering and supporting each team member in their own contribution whilst continually pointing out the big picture of what we're achieving together as a team and in the wider trust. In chaplaincy and spiritual care, we care about each other so that we care about our patients, we care about our staff, and so that we can care about you. This kind of teamwork is why our team works.
Thanks. Another great video. How lovely again to see another team in action, and I'm sure out there we've got loads and loads of teams doing similar things on a day-to-day basis. So I'm just going to move us on to the last bit of our agenda this afternoon, which is around celebrating our positive stars and all of the nominations that we've had in this month. Please remember that sometimes, you know, it's a great way of being able to celebrate what everybody does on a day-to-day basis, whether that's an individual, whether that's a team, whether that's something that we've done differently, or just the extra bits that we add in to our patients on a day-to-day basis. So I'd encourage you all to put your nominations in for your positive stars. Next slide, please. So this month we've had a whopping 57 nominations, and on the next slide we'll show all of those names that we've had. So 41 individual nominations and 16 teams. And again, you'll see the link on Connecting Knots around how you can nominate. And there's the names of all of our different people and teams that have been nominated this month. Huge congratulations to Callum Evans, who was this month's winner. But again, rather than single everyone out, I'm sure everybody is a star, and I know they are on a day-to-day basis for everything they do day in and day out in terms of that. So continue to that. The other thing I noticed that that came out last week was nominations for the Oscars. So again, alongside our monthly positive stars, there's a huge opportunity for people to put their nominations in now for the Oscars. Any of you that joined me earlier in the year, it was a great event and another great way of showcasing what people are doing on a day-to-day basis across all the different services that we have within the organisation. So again, I'd encourage you to put those nominations forward. Sometimes we don't think that actually the things we do are making any difference, but again, they are, and I'd really encourage you to be able to do that, which is excellent. Thank you. So without further ado, that's the end of this month's Connecting Knots, and I'd just like to thank all of the presenters and the presentations that we've had. Huge variation of themes today, and next month's Connecting Knots, which will be in April, not jumping around time as I was earlier, and we'd encourage you to join. And next month the value focus is going to be about trust and what that means to you. You can also see on the slide set that we're really keen, if you want to be one of those teams that are part of the showcase today around what trust means to you as a team, then by all means send that in via the email address on the screen or to Jenny by the 11th of April, and you can be one of those teams that has a video in next month's Connecting Knots. So thank you very much for joining us again this afternoon, and those of you that have seen live, obviously this will be recorded and put on Connecting Knots as well, and thank you to the behind the scenes. We've had a number of technical issues this afternoon, so hopefully it's appeared seamless on the slides. So thanks very much and hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye bye.